Right, should we move on to the title race? Villa right in the mix. So are Arsenal, Manchester City. Arsenal far from their best to beat Everton. When I was at the Hill Dickinson on Saturday night, they relied on a Victor Gyökeres penalty, and a Victor Gyökeres penalty that came about because of a Jake O'Brien handball, which was completely inexplicable. Scott, as a defender in that circumstance, what on earth is he doing? I don't get it. I couldn't work it out. And I spoke to David Moyes afterwards, and I said to him, "Can you explain it?" And he was like, "No."
Mate, I haven't got a clue. I mean, I made a career at standing on that far post anyway, so I wasn't sort of right in the 6-yard box picking up the big centre forwards or centre halves. But I don't think I ever did anything like that, and I just don't get it. I don't know what he was thinking. I mean, there was a possible penalty shout just beforehand that led to the corner, which I actually thought was the right decision. He gave just enough of a nudge to not for it to be a penalty. I think you've got to be stronger there, Gyökeres, but I have no idea, mate. I'm sorry. I can't defend him in any way whatsoever.
Are we okay with Gyökeres given the penalty when Saka has scored 8 out of 8? Was that just sort of like one of those good captaincy moments where Odegaard realises that his star striker needs a goal and they trusted him to take it?
Yeah, I think the reaction would have been interesting if he'd missed it, by the way, because obviously the game was 0-0. It was, you were comparing it to when I said Kai Havertz was given a sympathy penalty. Was it down at Bournemouth last season? They were 3 or 4 up at that stage, so they're very different scenarios. But he's buried it, and the decision has paid off. And yeah, we'll put it down as good teammateship now from both Odegaard and obviously Saka to step aside, because they can be precious, these penalty takers, can't they?
It's interesting, though, because one of the things that we learned last couple of weeks is that he doesn't decide who takes the penalties anyway. He leaves that to the captain to make the decision on the pitch. Saka basically takes the penalties, then Odegaard, and now obviously Gyökeres is in the mix as well. But it's interesting, isn't it, Scott, that they have that discussion amongst themselves and they've got the latitude to make the decision.
Didn't Pep have that? And then there was an argument or something, and then he said, "Right, I'm gonna." Certainly, a manager in my mind, and said, "Right, I'm taking control of this." I played in the game where Paolo Di Canio and Frank Lampard were almost fighting each other to take the penalty. I think it was the Bradford game, and that itself was quite funny to watch.
Do you remember that Chelsea game? It was the Chelsea game, wasn't it, the other year, where Noni Madueke, Nicholas Jackson, and somebody else started scrapping over who was going to take the penalty.
That's right. Honestly, that was a massive moment, because if they hadn't have scored that and it ended up 0-0 after, losing against Villa, just about beating Wolves, 0-0 Everton away, City in the form that they're in right now, that was a massive, massive moment. I thought that at the time. So well done for Gyökeres to take, and it was a powerful penalty. But if it hadn't have gone the right way and it would draw 0-0, tell you what now, could you imagine everybody talking about that moment?
Arsenal were far from at their best, though, and I think we sort of all admit that they weren't particularly potent in the game against Wolverhampton Wanderers either, Scott. And I just wonder about that sort of level of chance creation, that they've started to dry up a little bit in front of goal. 2 own goals against Wolves. Didn't look particularly potent against Aston Villa. They obviously needed the penalty against Everton, although they did create a couple of good chances where they hit the post. The Trossard one was absolutely fantastic. Really well-constructed move, actually. But I just wonder whether or not the pressure is starting to tell a little bit on 1 or 2 of those attackers, knowing that they are now responsible for trying to maintain this lead at the top of the table.
Well, I think the word maintain is key here. It's practically impossible to maintain that top level, creating lots of chances, home and away throughout a whole season, and be pushing Manchester City away every single time. They're going through a patch at the moment, and it's still a very small patch, but okay, they're not playing as well, but okay, and they lost to Villa, but so did the Manchester City at Villa Park. They found a way to win against Wolves. They found a way to win against Everton. They can't keep on finding ways to win, but I go again, a Premier League season is up and down in terms of form, and when you're not playing well, you have to find a way to win. Everton away is a very difficult place, as they prove that to be. If they had a proper striker themselves, then maybe Arsenal wouldn't have come away with all 3 points, but they don't, and they did. So, do you know what? You move on to the next one.
Best moment of the weekend, by the way, is whilst sitting in the Hill Dickinson Stadium right at the very back with all of the supporters around us, as you do there, right? You're really in the mix with the supporters, is when Dominic Calvert-Lewin scores his 2nd goal in my ear, and I throw to Chris Hull. He does the report. and I come back and say that's now 6 goals in 5 games for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And the bloke who's sitting in front of me just turns around and says, he hasn't scored again, has he, Sam? And I say, he has. And he says, an expletive. It was absolutely hilarious. And me and Charlie Adam just started cracking up because obviously they're looking for a striker. They would love to have the goals that Dominic Calvert-Lewin is scoring now. And obviously he was allowed to go on a free transfer because he couldn't agree a contract at the Hill Dickinson. Manchester City did score a few goals, though, didn't they? All 3 of them from players in top form at this moment in time. Ryan Cherki, is he the most entertaining player in the league, Crook?
I think he's up there. And I'm not surprised that I watched him play for Lyon against Manchester United in that amazing Europa League game last season. And he was absolutely terrific in that game. A real box of tricks before he ran out of gas. And that does still concern me, fitness-wise, that maybe he's not quite at the peak of physical condition. But it's a scary prospect if he does get to that, because he scores goals, he makes goals, he takes players on. He's a maverick, isn't he? And there aren't too many mavericks in the Premier League these days. So, yeah, I think he's an absolute joy to watch. And that's difficult to say, being that he plays on the wrong side of Manchester.
Is it slightly worrying for Arsenal that Pep Guardiola is starting to play down his side's abilities, even though they seem to be cruising through games in first gear?
No, I mean, I think I'd expect Pep to be doing that, whatever, but it's certainly very worrying the form they're in right now. You know, I think they've always been very good going forwards. It's just a question of, you know, how are they in the transition? And it seems to me they're just not getting caught out as much. And don't forget, Rodri's still not playing at the moment. So Nico Gonzalez, amongst others, they're defending better as a team while allowing their attacking players to go forward and do what they need to do. And you know, as long as Erling Haaland stays fit, my goodness me, his numbers are just absolutely sensational.
19 Premier League goals already. He probably could get 40. He could quite easily get 40 in the second half of the season. Let's take a look at another.
For club and country as well. I mean, that's just ridiculous, isn't it? It's just mental
it is
numbers.
Absolutely ludicrous figures. But, you know, he is a top level, probably an elite finisher that we haven't seen the like of for a very, very long time and won't see again for a very long time. But these numbers are off the scale.